What's going on, guys? It's Kyle again with DTOM Knives and Gear, and today we're going to be taking a look at some Gil-Tek products. This is the Gil-Tek Ruck version 2, and this is the Gil-Tek KO. Stands for Knife 1. Stay tuned. All right, welcome back, everybody. Okay, first things first, this one right here, the Gil-Tek Ruck. A lot of people have probably already seen these things. This is a really cool little utility tool. This is the KO. This is their first knife that they created. We'll go over a little bit more, but first I want to thank our good friend Knife Lover 88. He was the one who sent these along to check out, and he just hit me up and said, "Have you ever heard of this?" And I was like, "Oh, no." And he was like, "Well, good, I want to send it to you." So the community that we have are in this freaking, man, I tell you what, it's just amazing. I am so very thankful for him for sending these along and letting me check them out. You, sir, are the man. So I carried this as a utility tool. I open bottles, and I do carry a pry bar, the Lynch Northwest. So I took that out, and I started to carry this some. This thing is very, very handy. Lightweight. We'll go over specs in a little bit, but as you can see, it has what could be used as a flathead screwdriver. It's kind of thick, so you wouldn't be able to do a lot of flathead stuff, but the bigger stuff. And then, of course, there's a little pry tool, and then there's your bottle opener. And then this thing is really, really nice to just flick out, cut what you need to cut, and then push it back in. You use your thumb here to press. You basically press down and move up, and then press down and move back. Very secure, very safe in the pocket. Never had any issues with the blade coming out or anything like that. And I really do like these kinds of tools. I mean, I always carry knives on me, but I have a guy that works in the shipping department where I work, and he carries the really big, like, U-line box cutter that has the replaceable blades and whatnot. It flicks out with like a button lock, so it's kind of cool, but very heavy. And so I kind of got him to look at this and was like, would this be something that you would like to carry? And he was like, man, yeah. So I might be picking one of these up for him because it's so lightweight. He could just throw it right in his pocket and then get it out, cut what he needs to cut, and then go on instead of having that big bulky thing on him. So yeah, there's tons of different options out there, but I really like this design by Gil-Tek, the Ruck. I love the name, but it was, it's very simple. This is the version 2, so it is 2 scales that are put together, and then like I said, you can get multiple different colors. You can get brass, you can get titanium, so you've got a lot of options there. They're inexpensive, and so I really enjoyed carrying this. It is a wonderful tool. You even have a little bit driver there in the back to put, your bits in to use. The ones that sit in there like that, I'm not a huge fan of. I like to have a driver and not have to do this, but for it to be there is great because if you happen to need it, you've got it. So really, really cool. I mean, of course, you can get all kinds of different razor blades for this guy, and yeah, I like it. I think it's a great tool to just throw in your pocket and keep on you, especially if you are in some like a shipping area and you use these things all the time instead of carrying those big bulky ones. This one is great. Matter of fact, I mean, you could throw it in your pocket. You could put a lanyard on this thing. Just so many different options. And because you can get options as far as colors and materials and stuff, I think that's wonderful. Now, this guy, I dropped it, but it's on a pad. Butterfingers, Jesus. This guy is the KO, Gil-Tek KO. Look at this. Okay, so you're automatically looking at this and going, whoa, now that is different. And it is. This, look at this flipper tab. Watch. I like this flipper tab. And it is a button lock. What? So it locks up, press the button, falls shut. Very, very interesting, very cool design, and it makes for a very fidgety knife. They call this thing the reverse integral button lock, I think. Is that what they called this? Let me make sure I'm getting that right before I do this. Yeah, the reverse integral button lock. I wanted to make sure. And that's exactly what it is. So as you can see on this side, so you have your show side, and then your lock side, and you can see there that is very familiar. It looks like a frame lock, but as you can see, it's in a different spot. You have here the button. Let's see if I can get a good angle on this. You have this, comes back, pin goes down there, the spring for that moves up, locks the blade in place, and then you have this button here to press and release. Super cool, nifty design. I really thought that was different, and as a matter of fact, when I first opened it up, I didn't know that this was a flipper tab. I was kind of fumbling around, and of course, you know, I like to do the reverse flick, and so these little slots here in the blade not only look cool, but they function as another way to deploy the knife, which is just getting your finger in there, and then, of course, I had to fail, getting your fingernail in there, and that is kind of one thing we'll go over. Because the lock bar is on this side and not on the other side, sometimes your finger presses on that and it can be a little bit cumbersome. So I have to learn basically where to put my finger to do the reverse flick and even do the drop. Because as you can see, like, all right, it's stopping there, but see where my finger is to press this button? So I have to make sure that my finger is off of that and it falls shut. So I like the design. It does take a little bit of getting used to because of where it's at. But once you do, it's really, really fun to fidget with. Like, I could play with this thing all day long. However, just the nature of the beast of the design makes it to where when your hands are around that lock bar, it makes it a little more cumbersome to close and to open. So, you know, and that's not uncommon because with most frame locks, it's kind of the same thing, even though it's on the other side. So for me, what I'm used to is holding my hands back to get off the internal frame lock. But on this one, it's different because it is in the back. So now I've got to move my hand forward. So that's what gave me a little bit of trouble on carrying this knife. But as you can see, this thing is super, super slim. That is S35 VN on that blade, which is kind of a Tonto. You know, it doesn't really have a point there. It does kind of just swoop out, but very nice utilitarian blade that is good for piercing into boxes. This is not a heavy use blade. It's very lightweight. And so, you know, you're not going to be using this for very heavy duty stuff, just for your EDC task. And for that, it worked really good. I mean, I cut, you know, boxes open, packages open, and, you know, I even cut a zip tie with it. It does pretty good. It's not the thinnest behind the edge. Let's go ahead and see what that is. So it's about 30 thousandths behind the edge. And would I like to see that thinner? I really would. And I think, you know, and it's really because of the grind. You get the width of this thing, and then you have a full flat, or a flat grind, saber grind, whatever you want to say. And so it doesn't have a lot of room to get this down thinner. So I like the blade shape, but if it was a little bit taller of a blade to get that down a little bit thinner, that would have probably been better. Because usually with this kind of thickness, I like to have a bigger, more outdoors knife. With this kind of size knife, I'd rather have a thinner edge. Not that it doesn't cut, because it cuts very, very well. It's just not as tall, so you can't get very thin behind the edge when you have a blade this thin. It does have proprietary hardware, and I did talk to them over there. Oh man, they are such great people over at Gil-Tek. I talked to them over on Instagram. Very willing to answer my questions, and we talked for quite a while for me to get to know this knife just a little bit better. And, you know, I asked him about that proprietary pivot, and he did say that it's because of the strength. And I get that. With this kind of shape, I can definitely see a bit that goes in there to get this torque being way stronger and way more likely not to mess up on you versus a Torx. Now, a lot of people don't like proprietary stuff, and I get it, because you can't find, you know, you just can't get it. So if you get sent a tool to do that, and which he was willing to send me a tool for me to be able to, because I've got just a little bit of blade play in this, because it's been flicked 5 million different times. But then he did offer to send it to me. You know, it was one of those things that this is not my knife, so I'm not going to really be doing anything with it. This is Mr. Knife Lover 88's knife, and so yeah, I didn't want to really mess with anything. Man, I tell you, I just really dig the way it looks. I really dig the button lock feature. It really is fidgety. It's just a little small for me. So ergonomically, this little this little area right here, there is no really, I mean, you could choke up right here. It's not as good, you know, other than a flat, you know, this flipper tab, which you'll call, you know, I can put my thumb there and kind of get behind it. It's not uncomfortable at all. But unless I do that, I am really only getting maybe 3.5 fingers on this. And so with my big old meat hooks, it doesn't work tremendously well. But that's not to say it's not comfortable. It's just not as comfortable as some other bigger knives just because my hands are so huge. But no jimping on the top of the blade. It is, you know, my regular saber grip. I can get right here. I feel pretty comfortable. My finger, because my hands are kind of so cramped in here, does rub against this area of the flipper tab. It's not a huge deal. It's just something that is there. And, you know, I don't really, reverse grip feels fine. I just never use reverse grip. But, you know, for the most part, any kind of cutting that I had to do in that saber grip worked just fine. I didn't have any problems at all. But mainly what I did with this knife is play with it. I played with it constantly because this button lock is really cool. One more look at this flipper tab, and as you can see, I like it because the detent is not the strongest, but the leverage that you get here flips this thing out really, really well. I mean, I really like the design of the way this flipper tab is done. See, I'm trying to fail it here, and you can. Of course, I'm using my index finger like that, but when you pull it straight down the way it's meant to be done, you can still fail it. So this is kind of a combination of light switch and push button, because I'm pressing downward and in like that to be able to get it down. And once I do that, it comes out with authority. Now it doesn't have any kind of like really nice snapping noise. It's very quiet. Sometimes I really like the really snap, but with this titanium frame lock in the design, it's kind of the nature of the beast. I really like it. It's just too small for my hands. And it just feels so lightweight. We'll get behind the camera, do some size comparisons. You know, and lightweight is good. Lightweight is fine for a lot of people. For me, lightweight's not that good. But keep an eye out because they are not done. I told him, it's like with this design and what goes into this, this has got to be hard to manufacture. But there were only like 19 of these made. So it didn't take off. It didn't really get the traction that he wanted it to. But I wanted to check it out anyway because I really think it's a company to keep our eye on. For somebody to put this kind of knife together and just be like, hey, let's see what people think. I think you got to have balls. And so what they did, I really enjoy. I think they can tweak upon it and improve upon it. It does have a deep carry loop over pocket clip, which of course everybody likes, but it also does come in this really nice leather slip. I carried it in the pocket. I didn't really carry it in the slip, but it fits in there with the pocket clip to, you know, kind of protect it. And this thing carries like a dream because it is so lightweight. The deep carry pocket clip does have a lanyard hole back there. So this thing carries about as well as anything you can have because of the weight and the slimness of it. Very, very nice. As you can see, this PVD colored pocket clip, really, really stoked about that. And yeah. So let's get behind the knife and let's get some size comparisons because it is rather small. And I mean, it's not tiny, but it's rather small. And so I want you to get a good idea on the size of this bad boy. All right, first of all, let's get the dimensions of Mr. Ruck here. So you have an overall length, just because I feel like doing this and not my tape measure, of about 3 inches, 362. You have a width here of about 1 inch, 127, and a thickness of about 200 thousandths, a little over. So very thin, very lightweight. Let's see if this thing even registers on the O scale because it's so lightweight. Of course it's going to register, but let's see what this thing weighs. Seriously, 0.65 ounces. You really can't get any better than that as far as a lightweight tool. You are definitely going to forget this thing is in your pocket. So the Ruck version 2, very useful, very pretty, very sturdy feeling. I can definitely recommend this to anybody. The Ruck KO. All right, we have an overall length of this guy of about 7 inches, like 7 3/8 or so. And then you have a 3-inch blade, and then the thickness of this blade is about 100 thousandths. So it's not a very thick blade. Like I said, it's just I wish the grind came up a little further to make it thinner behind the edge. So, you know, decent size. It's not a oversized knife. Here it is against the PM2. And then here it is against the Para 3. So much more Para 3 size. You have definitely, of course, this one has the skinny mod on it, but definitely different ergonomically. And the reason that this kind of size knife doesn't work as well for me, especially without a finger control, because as you can see on the Para 3, how my hand sits there, you know, back here, seriously, 3.5 fingers off. So that's the kind of a problem when it comes to ergonomics with me and somebody with my hand size. Somebody with smaller hands, I believe this would work absolutely great. It's just not for my hand size. But he has already told me that he's got other stuff in the works, and I'm really looking forward to checking that out. Here is that slip that I was talking about. Oop, go in here like this. So really nice slip if you didn't want to carry the pocket clip, which I know a lot of people are like that, but man, this thing fits so well in the pocket because of the slimness of the blade. There we go. See, I was kind of messing up on the on the reverse flick, but it just takes a little bit of getting used to because of where your hands are sitting, and that's the problem, is because that integral lock is on the other side. And so I believe that's probably going to be a problem for most people, is you've really got to make sure your hands are not on the back side of the knife, because that's where the lock is. So, you know, the design is cool and it's different, and I love cool and different stuff. The practicality of this just kind of missed the mark, and I'm assuming that's what happened and why this didn't take off like it really like I thought it might. But you know, it's definitely a knife that I think you only have 19 of these, so that's about as rare as you can get. You know, they will not be making any more, but you can probably find some on the secondary market. The price was another thing I think threw people off just a little bit, because it was $400 for titanium and S35 VN steel. But the reason is the manufacturing process that goes into making a blade like this, and the button lock system that they have. I mean, it's just a lot of engineering is going into this. They learned a lot from this experience, and I really can't wait to see what they have next coming out. I'm really hoping it's pretty soon. I'm hoping it's this year that they try some other stuff, so we can definitely check out that stuff. I mean, I really appreciate these American companies doing this. Being like, you know what? We've already made this. Let's just try our hands in a knife. And if this is the first thing that they come up with, I am so looking forward to the other stuff. The other thing, you know, the button lock, you know, on most button locks, it doesn't really stick out that far. So this button is very easy to disengage, but it's almost like your thumb or your finger, instead of just moving straight up to be able to disengage that, it's sticking proud like quite a bit. So you basically have to move your finger off to disengage that. It's not a huge deal, but it's not as intuitive as some of the other button locks, because it is so far up and you can't just slide your thumb and disengage it. I don't know if I'm making any sense, but anyways, I really have enjoyed this knife, and I really appreciate Knife Lover 88 for sending this along, and Gil-Tek for talking to me about this guy. I really enjoyed talking to them. Such great people over there out of Colorado, 100% USA made. So we want to be able to you know, support our American makers. And so, yeah, definitely go hit them up on Instagram, follow them, see what they've got going on. I will have their website and their Instagram linked down below, as well as Knife Lover 88 for sending this along. Guys, stay safe in this crazy freaking world that we are living in, and we will see you in the next one.